I want to talk about two phrases. And the first phrase which I had today is the deficit of personhood. And the second phrase is a very common phrase. It's you're just too lazy. You need to work hard. And so, about 2 years ago, I came to a very logical conclusion. And when I say logical, I actually mean I thought about it from cost analysis and sustainability. And so I was looking at my personhood. And by personhood, I mean the fact that I have a body, and this body needs to be fed, it needs to go to the toilet, it needs to be washed, and it needs to sleep. So we are not even talking about any form of luxury. We're just talking about the basic needs of a human body, of a human being, of a human person. And so we are currently living in a system or in a time where all those four things I've mentioned actually do cost money. Food, because you need to eat. Toilet, because you need to go to the toilet. So you need somewhere to go. You also need to wash it, to bathe. And so you need access to a bathroom. And lastly, you need to sleep. And so you need access to a bed in any shape or form or whatever. And that bed can most often, a bed is usually inside the house. You can't just put a bed outside. And so I was getting rent arrears. I was coming up short on rent for a few months. And the only thing that saved me was the fact that I had lived in the same place for about 8 years. And I wasn't dealing with the leasing agent. I was dealing with the landlord themselves. And so there were times in the beginning where I was doing a bit well. And so I would pay rent like 2-3 months in advance. And so when things gradually got hard, the landlord was understanding because we had walked a long journey together, and they had seen me during my highs. But I also credit their compassion and understanding, because I think there was a year, out of the 8 years, there was a year I had a full year's rent arrears, and I wasn't being rushed. Yes, they would occasionally ask how I'm doing, and by that, of course, they're asking where my money at. But it wasn't pressure like if you don't have it by next week, if you don't have it by 2 weeks, there will be consequences. No, it was basically just checking in. How are you doing? That type of compassionate concern. And so it got to a point where I sat with myself and I asked a very hard and a very personal question. Is my life sustainable as it is? And if it continues like this, what is the point of continuing to do it, to do life? And I wasn't even feeling depressed. I wasn't feeling any form of mental complications or mental illness. It was a very logical question. Like, if I can't afford those four things: eating, a place to go to the washroom, washing, a place to wash my body at, in privacy, and a place to sleep. Then what if I can't afford to do those four things? And what's the point then? Or have I gotten to the end of the sustainability of my existence? And it was a difficult conversation to have with myself. It was tough. It was tough. But the irony is, I actually didn't want to go through with it. I was just looking at it logically and logistically, looking at the logistics of existence and looking at where I am. And that brings me to the second phrase, to the phrases I talked about. The first phrase being a deficit of personhood. And the times we are living in, or the system we are living in, is where you, as a person, you have to be valuable to other people for you to have access to resources, to have access to capital, to have access to money. For that money then to offer you access to the resources that you need to satisfy the four needs that I talked about: eating, going to the toilet, washing your body, and sleeping. And so when you become, let me use the word, worthless or valueless to other people, then you automatically lack the access to the resources to and the money to pay for those four things. And like I said, you're not even looking at paying them from a point of luxury. You're just looking to do them from a point of privacy, like the most basic privacy there is. And then we come to the second point, which is how people look at a situation like that, and they just conclude that you are too lazy and you need to work hard. But all this while, I was looking for work. I was trying to do things here and there. And I would get some jobs that would ensure that I have food for like the next 2 weeks or maybe the next 2 days. And so we, as a people, as a community, we need the language to describe that situation where you are looking at your life from a logistical and a logical point of view, and you're asking whether if things continue as they are, is it sustainable to continue to exist? Not from a mental health point of view, but from a logistics and a logical point of view. Without it being as a mental health debate, but rather a logical and logistical debate. So those are some thoughts I came across. Someone explained it in a way that made sense to what I was going through or feeling at the time, and I thought to talk about it as well.